Hey guys, Wade Paquin with WKP Construction. On this episode, I want to take a quick look at construction contracts and how, as builders and remodelers, we should be reevaluating those contracts to improve our position during a pandemic. So I'm going to break this episode up into two segments. The first segment will be Contract 101, let's call it, where let's take a quick look at the importance of a construction contract and why you should have one for all your projects, big or small, as a construction business owner. And then let's transition that conversation into how we should be reevaluating those contracts given the world we're living in right now, right? In my mind lately, and for a while now, I've been thinking about all of these potential things that could happen to a job site, to a project, to my business in this world we're living in with this pandemic. And let's talk about maybe some ways and things we can do to improve our position in, in the area of contract law. Now, Contract 101, as a construction business owner, have a contract. You should not be doing any work, small or big, whether it's a deck, addition, renovation, or custom home, without a contract. You probably have a local attorney if you're a builder or a contractor. If you don't, you should go get one and find one that is versed in real estate law and construction document law. They can easily draft a contract for you. We have one. It's about an 8-page contract. It's excellent. And we often also use AIA Contracts, the American Institute of Architects. They've got a great website, and on their website, they've got a handful of contracts from short contracts, long contracts, stipulated sum, cost plus, guaranteed maximum price, you name it, they have it. It's tailored for all different types of projects, whether residential or commercial. We use mostly AIA contracts for our projects, and they look like this, and we'll get into this here in a minute. The importance of a construction contract versus an oral or handshake agreement. I mean, do we really need to discuss that? There's obviously none of the oral or handshake agreements are going to hold up in a court of law. And people change over time. They forget things, their memory changes, which leads to disputes, to disagreements, and sometimes they get so ugly you can end up in court and, God forbid, end up with a lawsuit. This is a risky business. We need to protect ourselves, and there's no better way to do that than starting out with a contract. And I'm going to go through the list here on this AIA contract to just kind of outline some of the things that are really important to put in a contract, right? Number one, the contract documents. Contract documents are the drawings, the structural drawings, the architectural drawings, any addendums, any SKs, little sketches, anything that has been attached or included to the project that you've either bid on or you've budgeted, however you're doing the project, that your budget or your price is based on those drawings. They should be in this contract, and they should be labeled every page. So on an architectural drawing, A 100.1, 100.2, and so on. Every page should be listed. Date of commencement and substantial completion. That is critical. If you do not complete the project by substantial completion date, that can withhold payment. So you want to make sure that you've put a date on there that is going to allow you to finish the project in a reasonable amount of time for the client and for you to get the job done and execute everything with quality. Contract sum. That is the price that you have agreed to, or a budget price that you have agreed to. Payments. You want to talk about in detail how your payment terms work. We bill on the 1st and the 15th of the month. We expect our clients to pay us sometimes within 5 days, sometimes up to 10 days. But all of these payment terms should be listed. Insurance. You should list all your general liability, your workers' comp, all your insurance, whether you're bonded, all of that should be listed in here. Your insurance policy, company, everything should be in there. General provisions. This is a description of the work, the intent, and so on and so forth. All of that should be outlined and detailed. Owner, you want to list the owner's full name and address of the property. Sometimes it's in a trust or some sort of LLC. You want to make sure that all of that information is correct. You, the contractor, you want to make sure that your information is correct on there. The architect's information. Changes in the work. We don't really get involved in change orders anymore because we do cost plus work, but that's what changes in the work means. So you want to outline what your change order procedure is if you are doing things lump sum or GMP contracts. And in the case that it's cost plus, you would actually be using a different contract and not this AIA 105 here that I'm using as an example. Time, again, you want to define the timeline of the project, when you expect to start, when you expect to finish. Payments and completion, you want to get into this in detail, what your payment policy is, what your completion policy is, how you plan to achieve substantial completion, how you plan to punch out the job with punch list and finish the job out. Protection of persons and property, corrections of work. There's some things that you guys can read about here if you go on an AIA contract and read those sections. Termination of contract, and number 17 here, other terms and conditions. This is where I want to transition into how we should reevaluate these contracts in this pandemic world we're living in. Terms of the contract, let's start with that one. Who knows what's going to happen with COVID-19 going into this fall and winter? If things get shut down, if the CDC or individual states issue things that give us in the construction industry guidelines for our workers and what we should be doing, that should be integrated into these contracts. We should be following those rules, and they should be in here so the client understands that you're following CDC guidelines and state CDC guidelines, and that if something happens, say for instance, you live in one of those states, luckily it didn't happen here to us in Rhode Island, but if you live in one of those states where construction had to cease and desist temporarily, what do you do? What do you do with that project at that point? It's obviously not good for anybody. Everyone wants to keep their foot on the gas, but in that situation, and you've got materials hung out there, you've got materials sitting on the project that now need to sit there for maybe 2 weeks, 4 weeks, who knows how long. If those materials need to be replaced, who's going to pay for all this stuff? Who's going to pay for the downtime? Who's going to pay your bills, your lumber bills, if the project gets stopped by no control of your own, but by the state? You want to make sure that you've got some language in there that's going to adjust your payment terms so that as you're buying materials for your client, you're getting paid for them, or better yet, they're paid for as you're ordering them. And that's what we like to do, especially with everything that's been going on with supply chain issues, is we're buying things 2 and 3 months out from when we need them, but we're having the clients pay for that right away, so that inventory isn't sitting on the ground, and then God forbid something happens where we need to shut down and that material's on the job site. The client's not paying because the job is stalled, but the lumber company's calling us looking for payment. So you need to think about things like that, protect yourself. Other terms and conditions. So this is an area where you can edit in the AIA contract, or if you have your own contract, you need to put in there all of these things that could come up in the event that something happens as we go into what could be the high season, if you will, for COVID-19. And that is, who's going to pay for all of this stuff? What's going to happen if you can only have so many workers on the job site? How are you going to coordinate that? It's obviously going to crush the construction schedule, where maybe on some given day you have 15 subcontractors buzzing around the job site, but now you can only have 5. That's obviously a significantly reduced workforce, and that's going to slow the project down, which is going to push out that completion date or your substantial completion date. So how are you going to address that with your client? These are just some of the things that I'm thinking about. I just wanted to hop on here and do a quick episode on it because I think all of us as builders and contractors should really be taking a good hard look at what the future might hold for us if this does get worse, and it looks like it very well easily could. This was supposed to fizzle out over the summer with the warm temperatures, and that has proven to be completely false down south if you look what's going on in Florida and Texas and Arizona right now and elsewhere. And with flu season coming up and fall and winter ahead, who knows what's going to happen, but now's the time to carve out some time to put some thought into this, to get together with your attorney, to start thinking about all of these things to anchor yourself to weather the storm. I think that's the takeaway lesson here, is to anchor yourself to weather the storm. Communication on the job site through every aspect and facet of a project is obviously key. Communication on a contract, so everybody is on the same page. Everybody understands, what could happen and what will happen if a certain event or situation arises. It's all there. Everybody's read it. They've signed it, and you should have very little issues if you take the time up front to put all this stuff on paper and get all your parties to agree. So I'll leave it at that. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you're checking out all of my incredibly talented and smart colleagues on here, from Steve, Brent, and Jake. Check out their channels here in the Build Show Network. Make sure you're following us on Instagram, WKP_construction, and we'll see you soon right here on the Build Show.